The following video that you're about to see contains adult, namely sexual discussion on sex, relationships and sexuality. If you find this sort of stuff offensive, then please go ahead and click the back button now. I will not be offended. With that in mind, I cannot be held responsible for any offence caused. However, if you find the idea of disability in sex offensive, then may I advise you to maybe rethink this. Thank you for watching and please do enjoy this video. Hello everyone and welcome to this Blue Planet 64 video. Now, in this video, I still have my epic flick out J's. But that's not the point of this video. This video is going to be another non-computer one, and actually this is going to be about a subject matter which could be controversial, but in true Blue Planet 64 tradition, I'm going to go right on ahead with it anyway. But before I do that, there is something that I would like to show. So this morning I wanted to go on my Compaq Armada E500, and it seems that the Angry Bird, who basically hijacked Weasel 2HTM and UXW Bell's show on Thursday of last week, has basically came to my house, teamed up with the Loch Ness Monster, and they decided that they wanted to go on the laptop first, so I couldn't get on. Anyway, enough of that. So, Asperger Syndrome and relationships. Now, okay, a lot of people have done this before, but I would like to start by debunking the myth that people with Asperger Syndrome are asocial. Stereotypically, that might be the case, but then again, stereotypically, I should be dancing across the hills in a kilt, screaming something like "Okai Jemmy Noo," while throwing a log and playing the bagpipes, drunk. But as you can see, I'm not doing that. I'm sat in a dressing gown in front of my computer in Aberdeen, which is actually on the coast, and it's not in the Highlands. I'm making a video. There's no bagpipes or cabers in sight. So yeah, this is how stereotypes have helped us. Anyway, people with Asperger's may or may not have a few problems with romantic relationships. Just in case you're wondering, yes, this video is on romantic relationships. First off, social cues. You know, we're not really that good at those. Reading people's facial expressions, well, that's even more difficult for me because I'm visually impaired. Supposedly this sort of stuff can be learned, but then again, it doesn't come naturally to us. You know, I would say that I mean, for those of you who are into electronics, you'll understand me. For those of you who aren't, please forgive me. Neurotypical people, social rules are basically hardwired into them, you know, kind of encoded, kind of burned in on a flash chip. So, you know, something like, you know, one of these wee guys on this card. Whereas for people on the autistic spectrum, this sort of stuff has to kind of be programmed in. So it's more like a program that's installed from some sort of a disk like this. And as a result of that, obviously, just like a computer program, we need to get it running. And sometimes we are in kind of 386 mode, so it doesn't really run fast enough. So obviously, so for those of you who didn't understand, basically what I'm saying here is these things just do not come naturally to people with Asperger's or autistic spectrum disorders. What can happen here is that we seem, quite self-focused and uncaring, whereas that's not necessarily the problem. I know it's a common joke that a lot of people say, and it is a common kind of joke, and a and some might say it's an unfair stereotype that, when a woman says, "Oh, there's nothing wrong," what she really means is, you'd better figure out what you did wrong. Now, people might start thinking, yay, that's not fair. My ex-girlfriend, though, she was exactly like that. Now, I'm not saying it's easy for neurotypical men to kind of get around that. But you've got to imagine it's got to be more difficult for someone with Asperger Syndrome. Another problem that we have is obviously, please excuse me, understanding the social consequences of things that we might do. That's something that I'm not really that good at. I might say something and not realise that it's going to offend people. Oh my goodness, I could write the bloody book on that. Unfortunately, when you're in a relationship, this can be so much more worse. So, bits of advice that I can give you as someone who's been in a relationship: never utter the name of your ex to someone who you are with. That'll go down about as well as the Titanic. And also, sometimes, I don't mean to stereotype it, I don't mean to be offensive, but sometimes your partner will say, "Oh, how do I look in this?" Now, it would be the Aspergian thing to say exactly how they looked. So if they didn't look all that nice, you might say, try not to, though. Try not to be harsh, Not like me. There's one hairstyle that I hate, and that's the one where you have, a bit up and a bit down, some of it kind of tied up into a ponytail, kind of like that, with the loose bits hanging, and geez, I hate that hairstyle. Oh my goodness. And as you've just seen, I don't mind making my views on that hairstyle heard. Trouble is, that would be something to probably not do. It's, my flatmate came in with that hairstyle, and I'm like, yeah, it makes you look like a kid. Probably not what she wanted to hear. And then what I said was, well, could you not make up your mind? Did you want your hair up or did you want your hair down? And you thought, I know, I'll have a wee bit of both. So that's not going to go down so well either. Now, there are other things, issues that the people on the autistic spectrum might face with relationships. It is a quirk of the Aspergian mind that it will focus on something, to the point where a neurotypical might start using the words obsession. Now, unfortunately, this, with relationships, it can be probably not good. When I started having kind of childish crushes on people, when I was 11 years old, I went with my school on a trip down to Glasgow, and we paired up with another school, and I reduced some poor wee quine to tears. Basically because I was obsessing over her. My friends were basically jostling me and saying, Jay, which girl do you like? Obviously me going in, taking things absolutely word for word. This is the gospel. Literally. with about as much class as a misfiring Jeep, possibly owned by Bizarre Firehead, but never mind. I turned round and went, that one! I like that one! Yeah, that's not going to do any good. Also, try, if you do like someone and you're not with them and you're trying to, you know, and you would like to, try not to obsess. I know it can be difficult. I'm the world's worst at it. You know, when I like someone, my thoughts can become really quite intense. Everything you do, eat or sleep or breathe can be about them. Try to distract yourself. Honestly. Because if you become obsessive, that might show, and you're probably going to freak out the person that you like. You know, and I've been in a situation more than once where I've just wanted to turn around and shout, I love you! To this person, to a person. But yeah. Another thing that I do want to talk about is personal space. This is something I've had problems with in the past. Personal space is one of those things that people on the spectrum don't always get. You know, if you're chatting to someone on the spectrum, you might find that they get a wee bit close. I always used to do. If that's something you're having problems with, ask a friend, if it's too close or something. If you're with someone, don't have the friend say to you, oh, you're too close to that person. If it works for you, maybe think up a wee code word or something. Or, if you do have access to any sort of therapeutic support or, anything, psychology or any other kind of support worker, get them to work on it with you. Because that would, that would be absolutely brilliant. If you can, personal space is something that can be learned. I've learned it, but I'm not going to blame you if you find it more difficult. Because I know that there are certain things that people on the spectrum have learned, which I have so far been unable to master. So, I'm not here to judge you, I'm just here to make videos that hopefully people will find informative and enjoyable. Now, the big white elephant in the room. There isn't one. There's no elephant in the room. Yeah. Yeah, like my autism band. It's Make Everyday Autism Awareness Day. It's the blue band. Specialist subject, as Luke Jackson, author of Freaks, Geeks and Asperger Syndrome, likes to call it. This can be difficult for all of us, so I'm not even gonna try and tell you. Well, actually, I am, but again, I'm not gonna judge anyone who finds it difficult. Try not to talk about your specialist subject too much. Because people will get bored and they'll be like, nah, this person's a one-trick pony. And, they're probably not going to want to come back for a second date, which would be awful sad. Even if you are a really vibrant person. Don't get me started, I could talk about vintage computers all the day. But then again, that's why I'm joining. That's why I'm part of my various groups on Facebook, so I can do that. But also, small talk, and I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the programming language here. I'm talking about actual small talk. That can be really difficult for people on the spectrum. You know, I know I find it difficult. When I'm meeting someone new for the first time, it can be really awkward. Sometimes, however, it isn't. You know, sometimes I can just build an instant rapport with people. It's like, there we go. But there's other people who it's just like, yeah, okay, yeah. Good small talk idea, you know, how are you? What, you know, ask, you know, the person you like, if you're kind of chatting with them, ask them about themselves. It shows that you are interested in them, you know, to ask things about, you know, what they do, you know, if they have a job, if they don't, you know, what maybe would you like to do? If they're studying, what are you studying? What do you want to do with that? You know, ask about their day, what have you been up to? I mean, obviously, don't go too personal. Don't go, oh, right, so what did you have for your breakfast? What time did you get up? Things like that. Wee bit too personal, I think. You know, but just kind of ask general questions. You never know. You might find something in what they're talking about that you're interested in. Also, try and know when they're wanting to talk. Again, this is social cues and it's really, really difficult. Ugh. And I don't know this either. You know, but I think one of the ones that I remember from the visualised support group is if she's leaning forward, or he, if, you know, if they're leaning forward, generally they might want to they'll be paying attention, or they might want to say something. Or if they got the mouth half open, like, yeah, I don't know. I'm completely the wrong person to ask on this, but hey, yeah. Now, one thing that I believe could be a problem for romantic relationships is meltdowns. Now, a big meltdown is what basically ended my last relationship, and it's not nice. Meltdowns is the one thing that I do have problems with. I mean, really, I can go from 0 to hero, and it's not good. So, you know, if meltdowns is something that you're having a problem with, you know, tell the person. Try and be aware of your triggers. Turn around to the person and say, look, you know, these are my triggers, you know, this can happen. But while you're doing that, at least try and get some help with it. Again, that is much easier said than done, you know? That's like me saying, alright, now you're going to fly to North Carolina with a jetpack on your back. From... yeah, and you're going to fly from Kirkcaldy in Fife all the way to North Carolina. I mean, that is how impossible. In fact, yeah, forget flying. To me, averting meltdowns can be about as possible as walking from Kirkcaldy in Fife to McLeansville in North Carolina. It's just not going to happen. There's a great big Atlantic Ocean there. I'm not good at walking on water. That's kind of more... That's kind of more the Lord. You know, that's kind of more his sort of stuff. But, yeah, and don't be distracted by emails either. A wee word, now I think, to people who are in relationships with folk on the spectrum. Try to be as understanding as possible. If it feels that your partner is not taking an interest in you, that might not be the case. They might not realise that they were supposed to take an interest in that part, or they might be taking an interest, or, you know, it could be a number of different reasons. We're not all just selfish like that, you know. About the meltdowns, try to avoid triggers, please. You know, meltdowns can be a part of Aspie life. You know, try not to make too much of a big song and dance about it. Generally, what will happen after a meltdown is we will feel pretty doggone bad afterwards. Don't make it worse, please. You know? If we really had that much control, most of us wouldn't do it in the first place, you know? Also, try to keep stress to a minimum, you know? If there's going to be something that's kind of changing, like, you know, I don't know if you live with someone on the autistic spectrum, you're in a relationship with them, and you're wanting to make any changes to kind of routine or anything, keep them informed. Seriously, do that. Be supportive. You know, it looks like we're going through some sort of stress period. You know, calmly ask us about it. I know it seems awfully egotistical. I'm really sorry. But, yeah. It can, you know, it can make the world a difference. If that is obviously done. Another thing that I forgot to mention or touch upon was touching. Every relationship has it, be it, you know, affectionate or otherwise. We'll come to the otherwise in a wee bit. Touching can, you know, most people will want to give hugs. Me being on the spectrum, I like to both give and receive hugs. But at the end of the day, it can be something that a lot of people on the spectrum find shocking. You know, some find, you know, touching quite painful. Again, you need to work out what is best for you and your partner. You know, if you're, I mean, for me personally, you know, if like someone was going to give me a hug, you know, I would want them to say, okay, I'm going to give you a hug. Or, you know, maybe not that obvious, you know, something like come here or something, you know, that would probably do the trick. Whereas if someone just kind of came up behind me and hugged me, I would probably jump. And that's awkward. You know, be like, oh, you don't want my hugs. Also, subtle hints. Sorry, I've just kind of, I've just kind of remembered this right now. Subtle hints. Please, don't use them. We can't always see through subtle hints. If there is something that needs done, or you want in, or you want it to talk about, or you want something to happen, don't subtly hint about it. You've got to tell us. And this goes back to the, oh, you've got to figure out what you did wrong scenario. We're not going to figure it out. You know? It's just not going to happen. You've got to tell us. You know? We don't get hints. Much unlike emails, I get several emails. Now, I suppose this is a part of the video that I turn around and tell all the kids to, like, away and stuff. This is where I talk about sex. And this really is quite controversial. So please forgive me, for I probably will completely bollocks this up. Nor does it help that someone in the kitchen could be walking through during the video. It's great help. Sex may or may not be a part of a relationship. But another stereotype that I'm going to break right now, and that's probably the first, I do believe it's the first time I've talked about this sort of stuff on my YouTube channel. So I know, so please forgive me. you know, if it upsets some of you, my regulars, I am going to set this video to have an adult age rating, so some of the younger viewers may not be able to watch, and parental discretion is advised. You know, if you want your kids to stay for this part, because I know, you know, some parents of children with autism will kind of watch videos of mine together. I've heard it done and said. But obviously, parental discretion is advised. I'm not going to be held responsible for what your kids kind of see and hear. You know, I'm going to put an adult block on it, so it's obviously up to you if you want your kids to be able to press that button and pretend like they're 21 or over, or 18 or over. Moving on. Do you remember when I was talking about obsessions earlier? Well, as a child on the autistic spectrum goes into puberty, they may or may not become interested in sex. And as that happens, they may start to develop an intense obsession with it. If they continually go on about it, you must, you know, I would say parents, teachers, support workers, that sort of thing, you've got to try and keep it in balance. Now, having a healthy interest in sex is a good thing. You know, it's perfectly natural. But when it starts to kind of dominate everything, you know, when it becomes an obsession, a lot of people probably will feel a lot uncomfortable about that. Also, sex is not something that is talked about in general conversation. You know, okay, you might be interested in it. I mean, I'm not trying to discredit anyone, and I hope I'm not offending anyone here. But it's not something that you can talk about in general conversation, you know. It's something that you may talk about with a partner or a close friend, you know, in the privacy of your own place. For parents who think that, you know, their Asperger or autistic spectrum, child on the autistic spectrum, you know, maybe a wee bit too interested in sex, have a look at what they're viewing online. Certainly, you know, supervise. I mean, this is kind of normal common sense anyway, but, you know, just to reiterate it, make sure you supervise what they're doing online. There's lots of protection software out there that you can install, or there's lots of child-friendly browsers out there that you can download and install that will only let children into a walled garden of sites. Now, this could be counterproductive. Obviously, schools will be doing sexual education for kids on this, well, for everyone. Now, again, you know, if your school decides that they don't want to give your child sex education because they think that, you know, they're going to be asexual, I think I have heard this happen before. Don't quote me on that, but I think it has been heard. No. If you feel that your child should go through sex education, do it. Obviously, if you have moral reasons for not wanting to teach them, you know, at a certain age, you know, that's fine. But don't let their disability be a reason not to give them sex education. At the end of the day, you know, people like to experiment. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I would say you have to have the knowledge, you know. People on the spectrum like sexual relationships as much as the next person, you know. Also, for people on the spectrum, sex isn't probably, you know, depending on how lucky you get. Don't think that sex is going to happen on the first date, you know. Make sure, as with anyone, make sure you're safe, you know. Make sure you have the correct protection. Lads, carry some condoms around, would you? It's only the decent and honourable thing to do. Also, there is a flip side to this. People you need to be protected. And I'm not just talking about contraception. I'm talking about being pressured into do something. It is perfectly okay to say no if you're a woman, or even if you're a man. Whatever gender you are, or identify with, or whatever, if you don't want to do something, it is your right to turn round and say no. So don't feel pressured into anything. With sex, I would say talk with your partner. Talk with your partner. Because, you know, it's a decision that you guys have got to decide together. You know. And I cannot stress this enough. You must not withhold information from anyone on the spectrum just because you think that they're not going to have sex. You know? That is just not cool. But at the same time, you know, I would say that people on the spectrum, you know, people on the spectrum, I think, like sex as much as anyone else, you know. Puberty. I know this isn't directly to do with relationships, but I know it is obviously a part of the whole sex thing. I would say that parents need to educate their children on the changes that are going to take place in their bodies. You know, you know, obviously I read a lot of stuff online about people on the autistic spectrum. And, you know, I read of a case where lads have been known to, you know, well, I've read of a case where a lad actually went and pulled out all of his pubic hair because he was just scared of the changes. So, you know, what you need to do is you need to have a frank discussion with your child why these changes are happening, what changes are going to happen. For example, in males, obviously, voice breaking and the awful, things like wet dreams and goodness knows what else. For girls, it's obviously menstrual cycles and, growing of breasts and what have you. Sorry if, again, I hope I'm not offending you by talking about all this stuff. But you need to know. Obviously your children need to know. It's just like with neurotypical children. They would want to know as well. Obviously it's one of those things. You can't withhold information. Nobody can withhold sex education from children on the spectrum. Because, like it or not, sex is natural. Anyway, I think I've covered sexuality. Oh, talking of sexuality, people on the autistic spectrum aren't just like neurotypical people. They're not necessarily going to be heterosexual. They, obviously might find themselves in the LGBT group of people. LGBT, for those who don't know, stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual. And if that happens, I guess this is more of a plea for anyone who finds themselves, anyone who kind of realises that they identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transsexual, don't discriminate or be nasty about it. It's perfectly natural. It's not something that is happening because of the autistic spectrum disorder. This happens in neurotypical people. It's not something that's wrong. Like I said, it is perfectly natural, but that is a completely different issue. I would say to anyone, who is related to someone in this group, well, not that I mean to group people off, but you know what I mean. You've got to, be supportive as you would if they, identified as heterosexual. Obviously, any sexual issues that affect neurotypicals will affect people on the autistic spectrum. It's just obviously because of their other difficulties, with being on the autistic spectrum, a lot of people might find it a lot more difficult to cope with. But I'm hoping my advice on this has kind of armed people on the spectrum, parents, carers, teachers, support workers, etc., etc. Oh yeah, and especially doctors. Please don't think that just because we're on the spectrum that we don't need access to gum clinics, cervical smears, or anything like that. Oh my goodness, I'm speaking to doctors. I've really overstepped the mark now. Jeez, because you think we're asexual, because we're not. But I do hope that this has actually helped a lot of people. If there's anything that I've missed out on this relationship video, please do let me know. Trolls, stay away, because your comments will be deleted and I will report you to YouTube, as this is a very sensitive matter, so no fooling around. I hope you've enjoyed watching my video. Please subscribe, hit the white subscribe button, and stay tuned for my next video, which after this one I think it might be something on computers, because I'm really, really, really quite scared doing this video. I know that there's going to be a lot of I know that there's going to be a lot of it that's been chopped out, so and if I have offended y'all, I'm really, really sorry. But I hope that this has kind of been positive in a way. Final words of the video. What I would like to say is, if you are on the autistic spectrum, you can have a successful romantic life and or sex life, Just be careful and, obviously, talk with your partner about difficulties, make sure, try and find, I know this is easier said than done, but try and find a partner who is willing to accept you for who you are. Because, let me tell you, you deserve this. I'm talking to you, person looking at the screen. You, person kind of absent-mindedly kind of fickering about with their iPhone. And you, person jumping back between this video and Outlook, check if you've got any new emails. And you, doing a last-minute bidding war on eBay. I'm talking to you all. You deserve to have a good romantic life if that is what you're wanting. Which just kind of, well, it kind of makes me think. I've talked about people on the autistic spectrum having a romantic life. But also, I would like to say, finally, and I feel awful for bringing this up at the last minute. What if someone you know on the spectrum doesn't have any desire to be with someone? Don't expect them to be. It is a social expectation that everyone will grow up and have a partner. Well, not everyone does like that. So if you know someone, if you're on the autistic spectrum and prefer to be alone, I'd just like to say that is fine. Not for everyone, but that is absolutely fine. And that is perfectly normal. Some people don't like to be with other people. Even, neurotypicals do. You know, I know a few that are quite happy to be on their own and be single. Parents, carers, family members, someone in your family on the autistic spectrum, looking like they're not wanting to be with someone, don't pressure them. You know, if they decide that they want to be with someone, they'll decide it in their own time. If they decide that they want to be on their own, well, so be it. You know, it's just natural. It's just common courtesy to give, people freedoms that they're entitled to. Anyway, this is really the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching it, and please stay tuned for future videos. Thank you very much.